And Jon, you have come up with a really good quote from an incredible leader from years ago, Abe Lincoln, and I think that's a great way to start this episode off. So let's hear it.
He was around a couple of years ago.
Yeah, just a few.
Yeah. So, we're talking about stoic leadership, and, one of the things about stoic leadership and what I love about it is, really testing the character of people. And Abe Lincoln wrote this quote, and if I can give just a little color around it, it was really kind of, people were asking President Lincoln how he chose his generals, to be in the Civil War. And, some of them, especially when we went to war, some of them had to be brought up from the ranks to be generals, because all of a sudden we're in the middle of a war and everything had to increase. His quote was, if you want to test someone's character, let them lead people, give them power, and see what they do with it. And it's kind of interesting, because when you think about leaders, it's really a great way to determine if somebody is really, really a good leader. And I've seen this. I mean, one of the reasons it's become one of my favorite quotes, because I've seen people in business, people I've even brought up and said to myself, wow, why did I do that? I'm looking at the way they're treating people. It's the way you treat people. Leadership's about. It's not about being dominant. It's not about being overbearing and looking down, micromanaging them in all these different areas. It's really about, being able to, work with people, give them the people you lead, give them the power. And we'll talk a little bit about that. We've talked about that in past episodes, but it always bears repeating that you want to give people that ability to be able to lead themselves in a lot of ways. And a great leader gives people that ability to let people have some self-discipline and lead themselves. So.
Right. And that, when you say that about certain leadership styles and so forth, and I know that, we're, going to be talking quite a bit about stoic beliefs and how that incorporates with leadership skills. But one of the things that you just said is looking at people that you brought on as leaders or to lead a certain department, and kind of thinking to yourself, okay, this was a great idea. This is perfect. Right. Or what the hell was I thinking? I should have never done this. And that was something that you also developed as far as a leader. And I think that has a big thing to do with your Philadelphia story, with your that old boss that you had when you were younger and so forth. And you said on, I don't remember exactly what episode it was on. It was, it was one of the last season's episodes, but you talked about the fact that he basically berated you at one point, made you have to walk home or figure out a way to get home and all that kind of stuff. And that taught you a lesson right then and there. And there's probably people that are listening to this sometime, in the future, from the time that we're recording this, that may be going through a situation like that.
Right.
And
horrible
are pissed off.
Horrible bosses are tough to have.
Yeah, but it's learning and utilizing that stoic philosophy of, I can't control what's happening outside of what I can control, but I can manage how I'm going to react to this. And the way that you reacted to that was, I'm not going to be this way, when I start my stuff.
Yeah, not going to be overbearing. Not going to be. No, I think strategies. Leadership isn't about, it's not about like being the king, and everybody thinks about leadership. As a leader, you're serving your people. Whether it's president or anything, you're serving people, and you've got a lot on your shoulders. And one of the ways you can get some of that off your shoulders is give people that ability to be able to, the flexibility to be able to do things, and not bear down on them. I've seen so many micromanagers, and they don't even get it. And that's, we can go back to the awareness scenario, right? They don't realize the way they come off to their people. And I wish there was a way to be able to help some of those people. Sometimes it can't be helped. They just get this dominant, there's a great story of someone I knew that joined the board and was involved with something. I don't want to get too deep into it, but he was a really nice guy. And when he got the power to be in charge, him and his wife, this was in in a living community, a condo. And when he got the choice, they just dominated people because they felt like they were the king and queen.
Mm.
It's kind of interesting, and people think that's leadership. Be nasty, be mean,
Right.
So for me, it's all about, you know, giving people the freedom to be led and let them, have that self-discipline to do it. And it's much easier to lead people that way
Right. Right.
when you respect them, you know?
Sure. Absolutely. And we're going to be talking quite a bit about self-awareness on some future episodes, as well as, what we've talked about in the prior season. But a question that I have for you, because this is obviously you've seen this a lot with things that you've done with the VC,
Yeah.
the investing and talking to literally thousands of businesses and entrepreneurs out there. Do you think it's something that people realize that they are micromanaging? And if not, what do you think causes that? And like you said, is there a way if there was a way to fix that?
Well, I think a lot of people can be fixed, right? I think a lot of people can be fixed, but I think there's, it does go back to being aware of yourself and having some ability to be able to step out of your own shoes and look at yourself. I've been very, I don't know if that's a superpower of mine because I don't have many superpowers, but I think a superpower of mine sometimes is to step away from my scenario and look back at myself. I don't think, no, not everybody can do that. And, what's wrong with them? I don't know. Narcissistic personalities, probably, some of them just can't put the blame on everything else. And, I'm running this business and it's their fault if it doesn't work. There's so many parts to that. You can probably get more done with neurotic people who put the blame on themselves for a lot of things and try to help them not shoulder everything. I see that in leaders too, Craig.
Mm.
Like I see leaders who like, I'm pulling everything, I'm doing it all, I'm exhausted. And you don't need to be exhausted. If you need to trust. Here's another one, Abe Lincoln, right? I said this before in a previous episode, but the big one was, I'd rather trust people and be disappointed once in a while than trust no one and be miserable the rest of my life. Right? And that was another Abe Lincoln quote. But it's so true. You got to give people, if you're going to grow anything, if you have to step on people's toes and stand up their back and breathe up their neck, you're not leading.
Right.
You're just pushing, and you're not doing anything to help anybody or help anyone move forward. You're pushing them forward, and that doesn't work.
I would also expect or suspect that being a good leader, also you have to give in and allow other people to lead. If it's your own business or you're a high level manager or executive and you're bringing people on to manage underneath you or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
That you have to be aware of how they're treating their people as well. That's what's going to help you because you're going to see that if things start to change, the workflow starts to change, people start to show up less to work. They're pissed off. Things go down, sales go down, and things like that. Being the either the owner of the business, the CEO, the high level executive, you have to be self aware to sit there and say, okay, what do I need to do as their leader now?
Yeah,
I've bumped them up. Now what do I need to do in order to provide them with the information? Saying, hey, listen, something's not working here. We're going to need to figure.
I
We're going to need to
think
figure this
there's
out.
another piece to this. Remind me to talk about integrity after. I don't want to get into it right now, but talk about integrity. It's really kind of based around what you say and what you actually do. That's what integrity is, right? If you're out of integrity when you don't say what you do. But we'll talk about that a little bit after. But Stoic leadership's about getting people through the tough times, but it also is understanding what motivates your people, each of them. Each of the people you lead. So you gotta work with some people. You can put it in boxes. I mean, you could have 5 boxes of not every person you have to be, especially if you're leading a lot of people, not every person you have to, be at their beck and call. You don't want, and you're not in the game for everybody to like you. You just want everybody to respect you, right? The secret, we've talked about that before too. The secret of, I don't know the secret of success, but I know the secret of failure is trying to get everybody to like you. This isn't about being a liked leader. It'd be nice to be liked. Certainly that's in on my list for sure, but it's not a requirement. But what is a requirement is to be respected and understood. And with that, I think like comes with it, but doesn't always, right? What motivates a team? I always think of the team member and let them think of themselves, what it looks like in the future. And from the NHA days, when I would talk to everybody, the goal was always like you're a leader in this department, right? Like with you in sales. And slowly, the goal was to bring, we talked about taking the hats off, but slowly it was to bring the temperature down where you're not doing everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
So slowly, for people who aren't watching the video, I'm taking my hand and raising it to the top of my head. That means you're doing everything. And as you start bringing that down, the leadership starts taking place. And you're not doing it, but your team is doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And the team under your team is doing it, and everybody's falling into place. And everybody's got a little leadership detail. So everybody needs to be a stoic leader in every part of the business. So to me, that's how you want your people to be. You want them to become leaders like yourself.
What would you just said? You want to be a stoic leader. What's your definition of what a stoic leader is? How would somebody be able to? Better question: how would somebody be able to recognize whether or not they're a stoic leader or not, and how to follow the principles of stoicism and being more stoic as a leader?
Yeah, so it'll bring me back. So I was going to talk about integrity later, but I brought in there. So even through the toughest times, we're always dealing with if you can almost think of a stoic leader as somebody standing on a mountain with the wind blowing out. It's kind of the stoic. That's my thought about stoic. But the concept always is about leadership, and your leadership will always be tested during rough times. It'll always be tested, and plenty of so-called leaders, have panicked. I mean, we see it in CEOs and companies, presidents, former, all of them that have just can't handle a situation, right? And and these situations are staring them right in the face. So the definition of a stoic leader is someone who has the ability to be able to stand forth and with integrity. And again, integrity is that ability to really say what you and do what you say, not just say it. There's plenty of people that say it. I know so many people that are out of integrity. There's also a part of consistency in being a leader, a stoic leader too. You got to act, and you got to be consistent. You got to be dependable. And that being dependable like that they're all parts of this. I guess the process of integrity and being consistent. It's all part of self-discipline. It's all part of being you as a leader, disciplining yourself to be on board and not sway and not be wishy-washy and not because that's what you're teaching your people to do. And if you are confused in a huff, blurting out things, losing your cool is probably the worst thing a leader could do. It ruins their integrity. It ruins their consistency. It's all the things that people look at you for. When a child is born, a child being raised wants their parents to be consistent. It's probably more important than any other thing. Consistent. Mom and dad love me. That's it. That's a thing that a child should be feeling. And I'm not, saying that people under a leader is child, but it's just a way of treating people. So, those to me are the kind of the forefronts of being a stoic leader and what it means to be a stoic leader. The integrity, the consistency, and the whole base of being self-disciplined and pushing self-discipline to your team.
I would also expect, because this is what happened when I was doing the at NHA, when I was the business development manager, and we brought in Joanne and Rob. There was always in the back of my mind that prior to the company being sold, of course, there was always, hey, there's other opportunities. There's other things that the department's going to grow. I would like, Rob and Joanne to eventually be able to, for me to have passed down good traits to them, that if that department continued to grow, that they would be able to lead those people and so forth.
Right.
And I think another thing that what makes a good leader and somebody that is managing that, regardless if it's your own business, if you're just in management positions, executive management positions, or you're leading a baseball team, as a leader and so forth, you need to expect that there's going to be other people leading. The people that are underneath you could be leaders one day.
Yeah.
Pass those things down to, and that really is kind of becoming a legacy for your leadership in a way, and building out.
No, it totally is. Yeah, yeah. The thing about also leading them is kind of understanding. Another part of being of stoic is giving people that understanding why you choose to work in the company, why you choose to create the company. You're the entrepreneur, and why you chose why this company exists, the purpose. I always tell you, there's got to be a purpose, right? We talk about this often, and you and I totally agree that every business has a purpose, but you got to let your people understand where they fit in that purpose and why they're coming to work. And you heard me often, and I did it a lot, and I didn't want to sound wishy-washy, but in NHA, and I've done it in Thrive and Sage and all my other businesses, NHA, it was always about, telling them about why they're, reminding them why they come to work every day, and reminding of the greater good that we're doing within our business and how we are reflecting on the world. And every business has that. And I always say, if you don't have it, find it. Whether that's, if you're making widgets, make it about the employees. Figure out a way that employees can benefit from making those widgets and why there's value being in that business. There's very little widget companies out there. Almost every business has a social purpose right now, to make life easier for others who, protect the environment. There's so many sustainable businesses, so many, social purpose businesses that are out there that, there's so much out there that serve mankind. And, if an employee loses that, the perspective of that, if they lose the vision of why they come to work every day, that's tough. And that, kind of goes back to your thing. If they're not treated right, they're not going to be taken care of. And you need to treat them right. You also need to remind them of that. And through the days at NHA, I would talk about that a lot. I probably did it a little too much sometimes, but I wanted people to understand how I thought of them, what I thought of them, how people in the world think about our organization, our company. And, we had that purpose, right? We were helping healthcare professionals advance in their career. We were also doing patient care. Our creation of certification was really about patient care protection, helping, obviously transfer of disease, patient customer service type. So it was literally, saving lives. Sage was the same thing. And so Thrive is very similar to Sage. We're working with kids with mental health issues and helping them make better lives for themselves, and even in a lot of ways, helping them survive. There were kids that were suicidal. So, for me, it's about the mission, keeping it alive, and keep that flame kindled.
So, one of the things that we have decided to do in these episodes moving forward from the first season is having a little more planning behind some of the things that we talk about and so forth.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at your notes that you have here. And one of the things that you just said kind of, in a way, leads very much into this note of Memento Mori, right? Yeah. Memento Mori. Remember, we shall die is essentially what that means.
Right.
And having a purpose for the business, putting things together, getting those things out there, changing people's lives. The philosophy behind Memento Mori, and you could probably expand on this a little bit more from what I understand, because again, I'm really at the beginner level of really understanding the Stoic philosophies.
You're doing a damn good job. You're doing a
Well,
great job of it.
I
Yeah.
appreciate that. But what I understand about Memento Mori and what that means, remember we shall die,
Right.
is that that's the inevitable end for all of us. We don't know when it's going to happen, how it's going to happen. We just hope that we can do the things in our life that will make some kind of a lasting
Impact.
impression on family, friends, the people that we leave behind and so forth. But it's also something to remember that you do not want to hesitate and think too much about the fact that should I do this, should I not do this? Because remember, you will die one day and you won't be able to do this.
Yeah.
But I want to know your thoughts on, why you put Memento Mori as, I mean, this is highlighted on
Yeah.
this note here.
Yeah.
Why is that so important, do you think, that saying for leaders and developing yourself as a leader?
Yeah. So, so you pretty much, talked about Memento Mori. I always say, like, Memento Mori, and, I have this band on my wrist, right? Memento Mori, because my wife didn't want me to get a tattoo that said Memento Mori. So my daughter was like, Dad, you got to get a tattoo of that. And I'm like, no, I think I'll go on, uh, online and find a rubber band that says the same thing, and this way I don't have to. I don't have to put a tattoo on my body. But
Sure.
Memento Mori to me is really about you will die, but live life now, right? And I don't mean go out and drink and go party. I meant live life. It's about legacy. It's about leaving this world better in any way we can than when we came into it. It's a process. It's a Stoic philosophy. Memento Mori is like the forefront of Stoic philosophy, but it's also the forefront of leadership. Leadership is about impact, legacies. You said it earlier, right? So you know that you want to be able to leave a legacy so somebody can pick it up and move forward. I want my, you know, we want our children to 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 learn these things and step forward and teach their children and teach their grandchildren when we're gone, right? Let's not worry about where we're going because we don't know. I
Right.
don't know. There's so many religions out there. I do know that the real thing that I can obviously determine is my legacy. I can at least leave an impression, whether that's picked up by somebody and talked about in the future or not. It's a legacy, but it has to do with leadership, and people remember. I mean, I remember the great leaders. Those are the people that, for me, have left the biggest legacy. Jobs, all the way to the great people that lived on this world. Marcus Aurelius, all these people that lived in this world that made this amazing impact. Albert Einstein. So that is part of being a leader. Is to have, I'm not better than given a little, and I'm going to do my best with it, and I'm going to remember that Memento Mori.
Right.
I have to understand. Let's not cry over and get stumbled up over every. Of course, dating things happen, and even those have to be dealt with and moved on. As much as people don't want to move forward after a death or something in your life that impacts you, but you need to, and that's the process. And Marcus Aurelius was one of the disciples. Seneca probably before him, and all those other philosophers way back. Marcus Aurelius was interesting because he was a emperor of Rome. He was a much different philosopher than some of the other philosophers. They didn't have leadership with them. Marcus Aurelius, in whatever, I think you said it to me how long ago Marcus Aurelius existed. Did you tell me that?
No, I don't, but I mean, it was,
Somebody just told me recently. And it was just like thousands of years ago. But ultimately, his legacy's, been there forever. But he was one of the first Stoic leaders. He actually brought Stoicism to the leadership world.
yeah.
So kind of interesting. And that's why I bring up momentum.
Gotcha. Now, Memento Mori aside, there's obviously things about that philosophy too that you bring into your daily life, with Memento Mori kind of being the background thought. When you're going through your your that weekend that you had, right? That we've talked about on other episodes, kind of way back when, where you told your wife, okay,
Yeah.
I'm locking myself in the office for the next couple of days to figure this out. There was, at that point, did you even realize that was kind of the thought was, listen, I got to figure this out. I want to make sure that this works. I want to figure out the answers, do the things that need to be done, make these hard decisions, because remember, I'm going to die. I don't want this thing to die. I want this thing to move forward. So I think that it comes down to also understanding and creating some time for yourself to do that. Some rituals or some mindfulness type of things. Do you still do those things sometimes? Maybe not lock yourself away for 2 weeks or 2 whole days from everything.
No, I don't do the 2 whole days as much anymore. But I do a lot of reviewing of my life, my world, my performance. Coming up, I'm going to be speaking at a college, and I'm preparing for that. And, actually, I have a couple speaking engagements about leadership that I'm going to be speaking at a couple business schools. And after recently doing something similar to that, it was just reviewing my performance. I review our performance on our on this podcast. I want to make sure that I'm performing well enough so people can pull as much information as they can out of this. I want them to learn from my wisdom. I mean, this is not, you and I both have put our time and efforts into this because we really feel strongly what this is all about, and we feel strongly about being, as an entrepreneur, both of us being entrepreneurs and understanding, what you've overcome, what I've overcome, and giving that information out to people. I was just talking last night with friends, and new friends actually who were listening to the podcast, and they were just like, they actually had one guy asked me, he's like, "You're comfortable like telling everybody everything about yourself, like about your car being repossessed?" And I am. I guess I really am. And maybe that's not typical of most people. Nobody wants to show their warts, but you know what? It's a great thing. It's To me, it's great to be able to do that. To tell That's probably the one thing I'm most proud of. I'm not afraid to hide all the bullshit I went through. The guy who berated me, and feeling less than normal in a lot of ways. My spelling bee failure, the girl who I loved, she didn't love me, but who I loved, and she'd pick me last in the spelling bee.
Yeah.
All those things. The only reason I talk about those things is because they're real, number one, and number two, as you and I know, that I want people to understand nobody is above anybody in this world. Even leaders. Leaders are just President of the United States. I go crazy over this, but President of the United States is to serve us. A president of our country is here to serve us. He's a servant of the people. So in a lot of ways, he's a servant. He's not the king of the world.
Sure.
And
Right.
regardless of politics, I'm just saying that we look at that so differently. A lot of people, look, if you listen to some of them about all the crap they've been through, I mean, listen to somebody's story. Nothing things come from the past. All the crap. We middle of the crap right now, but you're going to get out, right? And that's being a stoic leader, leading yourself out of the crap.
Right.
So
yeah, and that's the name of this podcast is Underdog Wisdom, right?
Yeah.
It's wisdom from an underdog, from underdogs.
Yeah, I think it's how we're all underdogs.
And that's, I think, why those stories resonate with people, and why it should be something where it's not something that you should be afraid of. The person listening to this right now that has a story, or like you said, is going through shit right now, and they don't know what to turn in, and they feel that it's right. Never going to happen for them. It's never going to work out. Because I went through it too. I remember telling Nikki for years, we're going to get, this is going to get figured out. We're going to figure this out. Things are going to work. Things are going to work. And, she had the nerve, I guess you can say, to stick by and believe me. And fortunately it worked out. But it's something that it can be your story one day. It can be your wisdom that can be passed down.
Yeah.
That's what's going to turn you into a leader, because that's really what wisdom is. is the lessons you learn and then passing that down, educating people on that. And that's what we're doing here with the podcast. And, so that leads me kind of to my last question here based off of your notes is, talking about resiliency, Memento Mori, resiliency. You've mentioned a few different leaders on here, Marcus Aurelius, Abraham Lincoln, things like that. Are there certain leaders that stand out to you, stoic, regardless if they're stoic or not? I know that's probably where you kind of gravitate to more is looking for stoic beliefs or things like that resemble your belief systems in a lot of ways. But are there any that stand out to you specifically, and why?
Yeah, I think, I've talked about it before, is that General Stockdale, which was kind of just an amazing story of a guy who survived, the prison camps. And what was interesting about that was, and I told the story before, so I won't go too deep into it, but some people that may have not listened to that other episode, it was about his ability to be able to live with two things going on, right? That we may never get out of this prison camp in Vietnam, and we're gonna be resilient. We're gonna keep pushing, and one day we will get out. So, he had these two. So it was the Stockdale paradox. I love the word. I use it often now. Paradox.
Sure.
Paradox is two kind of competing thoughts,
right?
But we live with those things. So I love that. And Abraham Lincoln. There you go. Another guy had a paradox going on. We could lose this war. I could be destroyed in the White House. The South could take over the country. Here I am, and we're going to be resilient. We're going to get through it. George Washington, Jesus, right? The British are coming, right? They're coming to invade our country and take it back over, right? They came here, and now they want the country. They want it to be part of England. Marcus Aurelius, who probably woke up every day and had to go to war with something or other.
Sure.
So there are so many heroes that we could, from the presidents to the generals to the great athletes to the Tom Brady's. I don't know if you put them all in the same category, but ultimately it's people that persevered, and that's what. To me, that's what Stoicism is all about. And some of them you don't have to, we don't call them Stoics. I didn't even know really what Stoic. I use the word so much now, but I was performing. The Road Less Traveled, that book, I realized, 20 something years after first reading it, that, wow, this was not only was a Stoic book, it was the ultimate Stoic book. So those are, yeah.
So to close out this episode, if you had one final piece of advice for anyone listening, and we're starting to discover that a lot of our listeners are of different age groups, but I think one thing that would be really beneficial is kind of aiming this question or your response to a younger generation, mid to late 20s, recently graduated, have entrepreneurial ideas, want to be a leader, or maybe are at a job where they have the potential to be able to, to move up into higher level positions and become leaders and things like that. What would be the one big takeaway that you would want to offer them if today was the day that Memento Mori was going to find you, right? Today was your last day, your last piece of advice that you could ever give. Do you have something that you would share with people that are looking to be?
I guess probably the piece about the legacy, about leaving a legacy, leaving the world, made it. All the pieces that go around a legacy is integrity, honesty, all those great words. But at the same time, leave your mark in this world. If you're going to be an entrepreneur and you want to build something and you want to create, do it. Move forward with it. Ship it, right? We talked about Seth Godin, right? The ship. Get stuff out. Don't be. There's enough people that are scared, and you have to be one of the brave ones to step away. And like we always said, bravery isn't. It's not. It's just not the avoid. Bravery isn't the avoidance of fear. It's doing it in spite of the fear. So you got to be brave and you got to be bold. And you got to understand that nothing. What's the worst that can happen in your life? You fail. I've done it enough times, probably more than anybody I know. And the nice thing is I've also had success more than a lot of people I know too. So those, you're going to have those. You're going to have more failures to get more successes, and move forward with that in mind. Those
Persevere.
yeah, those competing paradoxes, right? I'm going to fail and I'm going to succeed.
Yeah.
So
And
that's
and
kind of
it's and it's
that would be my final advice before I, fell over.
yeah. Yeah, because I think that's very important, because you mentioned something too before, that it's not just about entrepreneurs. It's also fathers, mothers,
Yeah.
aunts,
Yes.
uncles that are technically the leaders of that younger generation
Right.
of your children, of
We
your
both have
of your
girls,
family.
and we have girls, and we want our girls to live in a world that they're as equal to men, and they could be as successful and more successful as any guy out there. And it's great to have, we have strong wives, and we have strong daughters. And to me, hey, I'm a guy, and I'm telling you, you have every ability to be able to be successful in this world, and it's getting more and more for them. But that way for them,
Yeah,
you see with them is huge.
right. So build your legacy, build a system in your life that allows you to move forward, not being afraid of making mistakes,
Exactly.
knowing one day, just like everyone else that you know, that you love, that you care about, that maybe you don't care about, we are all going to die one day. And live with the fact that you'd rather make mistakes and be able to share those mistakes and pass down that information as your legacy before your time comes. And I think it'll just be an amazing thing to see what will happen for people if they actually take that advice. So, Jon, again, thanks so much for hopping on this episode with me.
Yeah, great episode today. Loved it.
This was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for listening. Feel free to find us on all the different platforms: Spotify, Apple, YouTube, X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, Instagram, TikTok.
Spotify. Yeah.
Let us know.
Apple, Spotify. Yeah, you said.
Yep. So again, thanks so much for listening, and we will catch you on the next episode. Have a great one. Talk to you soon, Jon.